Hey, look, everyone, I remember to share my screen with you all. Sketchbooks. All right, once again, I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping a record of this. Victor, okay, yep, that always works. Victor, going forward, try to put the eyes in the middle of the head. Are you there?
Yeah.
It'll be a better drawing. Always try to put the eyes more towards the middle. You're giving yourself a big jaw.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Victor. Lauren, Squeaky Bat. Okay.
I was looking at some early Craig McCracken stuff, and I was trying to like do some stuff like that with the simple construction and the thick outline.
Sure. Have you seen his Wander Over Yonder stuff?
He made that one?
Yep, he directed it. And my friend Dave, well, actually he produced it. My friend Dave Thomas directed it. Go on Internet Movie Database and look at Wander Over Yonder, and then look at Dave Thomas, and then you'll see that he was my mentor for many years. All right, thank you, Lauren. Trinity. It's an interesting way to study fabric. I've done mine more traditionally, where they actually talk about lines and how the folds work as either curved lines or folded lines. Heads are good. Again, you're having fun with it. Thank you, Trinity. Annika. Nice. How are you? Are these pencil or is this digital? Annika?
It's digital.
It's digital. That's nice. What do you, and again, what are you drawing with?
A tablet.
Just a
and
tablet.
Yeah.
You have a little pen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. Thank you, Annika. Noah. Success. Interesting. You know, I always kind of take a pause at anyone who's doing fan art. But I think that this stuff is like different enough that you could get away with it. Although this is not really the best portfolio kind of quality. But remember that there's two avenues for when you're putting your work together for a portfolio. Some artists are going to tell you, they're going to say, hey, yeah, we like fan art in portfolios, but make sure that it's in an industry kind of style and not just trying to reproduce what they're doing. All right, thank you, Noah. Chloe. Studying gestures. Okay. Chloe, did you put these in the wrong place? This is your sketchbook?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you say?
Oh, I was gonna say I had like 12 pages of those, but they're all kind of this. They all kind of look the same, so I only put like 3 pages here.
Looks like you're kind of getting the hang of it. It's an odd thing, right? Trying to draw that line of action.
Yeah, I think and I've been limiting myself to like 30-second, like the ones that are more like really simpler 30-second ones, and then the other ones are like I think 1 minute or 2-minute ones.
Yeah, you keep doing it. You're getting it. Thank you, Chloe. All right. Yunwei. Okay, yeah, these are great. Looks like there's a light source here. Are you drawing on paper? Yunwei.
Yeah, I'm using pencil.
Okay. Yep, looks good. Thank you, Yunwei.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ria. Oh, nice. Oh yeah, these are great. Thank you, Ria. I think it's an interesting point here where you're saying right or wrong, you're doing studies, and instead of crossing out the drawing, I do this too. I put like a little X right near it. Instead of erasing it or just scribbling it, it's always a better idea to just put an X outside the drawing. All right, cool. Thank you, Ria. Emma. Okay, that works for me. A little studying a little bit color there. All right, thank you, Ria, Emma. Nada. Okay, yeah, these are great. Yep, full credit. Okay, Kai. Okay. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I went backwards. Just one little point here. I remember that when we first started the class, we talked about the geometry of things. And even though this is a donut, it would be a better drawing of a donut if you used the geometry underneath it. Mochi's kind of hard, right? Because it's just a sphere. Just some ideas for you. Randy?
Yep.
It's facial studies. Remember, it's always good to lock those eyes in the middle of the face. And thank you, Randy. Rachel. Yep, okay, these are great. For anyone who's interested in drawing fashion, the last couple episodes of The Queen's Gambit, Hannah Taylor-Joy, who's the star of that TV series for Netflix, they just went to town on her fashion and her style. They just went crazy, especially the last two episodes. All right, thank you, everybody. Did I miss anybody? Did anybody upload that I missed? No? Okay. So let me go backwards now and look at your characters.
I'm so sorry. Mine just uploaded, I believe, and I missed you by like a couple seconds.
Okay. Nice. How are you getting this tone, May?
I use Photoshop
Photoshop,
and I just airbrush the heck out of it.
and you're using the airbrush.
Yeah.
My wish would be is that you're doing this quickly. This one, especially the one in the middle, right? That's a question.
Somewhat, yeah.
How long did you spend on this middle sketch?
I actually spend a long time on the line art because I'm not used to clean line art yet. And then the airbrushing is much of like a faster process.
Okay. It's always good to be fast.
Yeah.
That's my point, is like try to be as fast as possible with everything you do. All right, let's take a look at your characters here quickly enough. All right, remember what I said about the feedback loops here. So from what you've got today, I'm going to give you pointers, and remember that if you have a lot of pointers, and you might have a lot of feedback on here. All right, so we start with Lauren. So Lauren, now it becomes kind of an issue with the line quality. Now you're probably going to want to switch to a light blue color to do the rough, and then a single, more economical line to do the tie down. if you're going to do them on the same drawing. So, here I'll just pick a light line. So you do the drawing for the head, the line of action, you get your shoulders in there, you get the shape of the character going, and then pick, if you're going to pick black, then just pick one stroke to do the line that is the contour. Lauren, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Try to be more efficient with these lines, because you're going to want to really lock down that character. So it's good to have the sketch quality to the lines as a rough, but be more efficient, more economical when it comes to your tie down lines. Sometimes animators will do the rough drawings on a separate piece of paper, or in Photoshop use a separate layer and then do the tie downs on another layer. Try to keep these in order. I don't usually need the back view in these classes. What you need is front 3/4 side, right? Front 3/4, unless you're telling me that this is her front. Is this her front?
No.
Yeah, you need front 3/4 side.
I didn't quite finish it.
And you're working on your dragon. Okay, and you need the other two characters as well. So, right, because you want your antagonist to have a sidekick, and your protagonist to have a sidekick as well. So keep going on that. Try to work. These lines here are a little more efficient, a little bit more economical. I think that your overall designs are good. It looks like you've got a good swing to the line, a good balance. Finish them out. Put it in if you can finish it today, you can just put it right on top of this. All right, thank you, Lauren. Annika. Okie dokie. Oh, yep, this is great. So here she's got some of the psychology put in there, some of the characterization put in there, front 3/4 side. I would probably bring the feet more together in the side view. Annika, Miss Annika?
Yeah.
Because right now you have the feet should be the widest they are apart from each other in the front view, right? Watch my fingers. And then as you turn to 3/4, they get closer together. And then in the side view, they're technically right on top of each other. But my instruction last week was to just kind of keep them apart from each other just a little bit. The design looks good, but the technical quality of the side view, because look at what you've done to the hip in the side view, right? In the side view, the appearance is that you've got this hand raised, and that now the hip looks like almost 1.5 times wider than the first front view. All right, your designs are interesting. Front 3/4 side. So this is a very deep character, that's okay. And these are poses of that character walking.
Just like doodles about like the shape of the character.
Okay. Is it a bird?
I don't really know yet.
It looks like a bird.
Yeah.
A giant penguin. All right. Your next one, and again, it doesn't matter whether you consider villains or protagonist or antagonist, but it looks good. Interesting. Okay. All right, and your fourth character. Okay, yeah, it looks like you've got a pretty good handle on this. This is the silhouette here. What does spin mean?
Oh, it's like a spirit, I guess.
Oh,
I haven't really finished the design.
Okay, yeah, this looks good. Okay, yeah, you got the right idea here. So everyone looking at Annika's, this is the right idea. Some technical problems just with their turnaround, and let me just annotate that for you. So remember that in the front view, the line of action can be pretty straight. In the 3/4, I think you need a little work here because I think the head should be in the middle. And then get the line of action, the shoulders, the hips. I think the feet here, if their feet are only this far apart, then in the 3/4 view, they would be about that far apart. And this arm can still be here, but the back would be here. And this would drape and it would reveal this foot like that. In the side view is where we see the strongest presentation of the line of action. And the balance point, if the head was here, would be here. So put his right foot here and put his left foot here. You can kind of see how they kind of close together. And well, if he's holding this arm straight out, if he's holding the arm straight out from him, then it would be in this view, you would see the strongest presentation of that. All right, so that's just how I would go about, and get the lineup lines in there, kind of like we talked about, picking ideal points, making sure they don't touch the character. It's good to do facial studies. Okay, thank you, Annika. All right, Fernando. Fernando, are you here? He uploaded his work, but he's not here. All right, so if he gets a chance to see the video. Okay, this is great. This is a great turnaround. Protagonist, the face is not done. I am not sure if Fernando was here last week. He was here last week. You only need 3 views. You don't need the rear 3/4 or the rear for a class like this. It's good to do it. I mean, it's great to get the idea. But I think that I would have liked it if you'd have spent more time designing the face than getting these other 2 poses here. And you don't have the other 3 characters, so you need to get the rest of it going here, Fernando, Mr. Fernando. All right, Noah. Okay, Noah. Actually, Lauren, what's the first thing I'm going to say?
Oh, you don't like the lines through the figure?
Yep. Do not let the lineup lines touch the character. Noah, Mr. Noah.
Yeah,
Are
I'll
you
do
making
that in the
notes?
future.
Just
Yeah.
erase them. Just erase them for where they are, touching the character. Actually, I might be able to do a demo of that. Let me see. So end them, end the lines right there. You see what I'm doing? Some studios will allow you to have that little bit of a line right there, but this is a really good example that if you have this little armor plate here, you don't want any lines near this. You don't want any extra lines right there confusing any of your production team about what is part of a detail or what is part of a lineup line. See what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And you could just do the same thing if you did this in Photoshop, and the lines about right here. And I know that some of the production classes that I have over the years will do the lineup lines like you just did them, and they'll forget about this rule that I have. And then they'll go back in and just kind of do what I'm doing right now and just kind of fix them. All right, so, and then you would do that for the other characters. So the other thing here is that, remember last week that I said, it's always good to show the left foot and then let the right foot come down off the horizon just a little bit. I think this might be better if you try to use the hands on the hip routine right here, just for this pose. These poses are okay, but use this for the side view. Okay, same things. Remember, Annika had the right idea. I think that you, from my example that I was showing you online, you should be thinking about the characterization of the character. You do not need the back view, but you do need to think about what are their positive traits, what are their negative traits, what are their faults and failures and weaknesses. The designs are getting there, they're pretty good. But remember, I don't want just one foot in the side view. Give me a little bit of a sliver of the away foot. All right, your designs look good. The next step that you would want to do here, Noah, is do a size comparison. And go back and look at the video from last week, just the idea for how to set them up. The designs look good. Presentation just needs a little bit of work right there. All right, Chloe. Okay. Barnabas, the duck, the prince of hell. Okay. So, right, now get the characterization going. You know, sometimes a villain's positive traits are the evil part, and their negative parts are love, right? Think about Darth Vader. What was Darth Vader's fault?
Oh, are you asking me like this is not rhetorical?
No.
Oh,
What was Darth Vader's fault?
his fault?
Yeah, what was his principal fault?
Like as a good guy or like as Anakin Skywalker or as Darth Vader? Sorry, I think
No.
I'm thinking about this question too hard.
Well, Darth Vader's fault was love.
Hmm.
His love for Luke, when he realizes Luke is his son, you know, whatever, he didn't always know because Obi-Wan hid him from him.
Hmm.
But once he figured it out, it's like, oh, he does love him. And for a villain, that's a fault. That's a failure. That's a weakness. Lauren, you okay? It looks like you're being bitten by your background. Ah! All right, does that make sense, Chloe?
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is okay. Your gentle giant here could use a better line of action.
Mhm.
I think that he would just be better if you kind of had a more visual rhythm. I'm waiting for Zoom to wake up here. Zoom. There. I still haven't figured out how to do that. So right now I see that the head is balanced over the balls of the feet. Now, if I just draw a line straight down, I think it would be better if you start with your head, and your neck is going backwards. So draw your line of action, right?
Mhm.
And take the same bean shape that you've got. And you might even want to give him like a little bump. You got a little one here, but one thing that you could do is kind of bump it more so that he looks more like a squished pear. But if you get this line of action in the right place, then you realize the hips are here and then your legs are here, and then it balances him more.
Mhm.
And so you've got the volume for the right leg, the volume for the lower right leg, and then remember, get that other left foot just in there so we can see it. And again, with the other ones, it kind of makes sense to put this character's arms on their hip. And if you needed the other arm out here, you know, holding a hammer or something, you could do that.
Mhm.
But this rhythm is balanced so that this head is right over his feet, right over the balls of his feet. Here, he's kind of leaning forward a little bit too much. It would make for just a better drawing.
Okay.
All right, she's and look, she's leaning forward too. So use that same process I just talked about, right?
Mhm.
Right, she's a great character. Are these snakes?
That's to be determined.
You know,
Originally they were, and then because like I wanted to make a Medusa kind of character, at least from the head. And then I don't know if I want them to be snakes or something else yet.
yeah, it might be a little too obvious if they were snakes. It might be more fun if they were something else.
Mhm.
Like worms or spaghetti. And
Yeah, I
and she's always got to worry about birds chasing her around, trying to eat her hair.
I was also thinking about just maybe turning into like a head of flames, kind of like Hades
Sure, that
from
would be
Hercules.
work. All right, so you've got the right idea here. Get going on your characterizations. Got it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. You're welcome. All right, Ryan. Front, side, 3/4. Keep them in order, Ryan. Front, 3/4, side. It's always best to keep them in order. I know that there's a whole bunch of examples out there where the artist has started with a drawing that's in the front view and they go to 3/4 and they go to the side. I think that it's more professional just to keep them in the right order. Like you did here, that one's right. Are you still working on it? But you got
Yeah,
the right
still
idea?
just trying to get the details sorted
Yeah,
out.
you got the right idea. And it is a bunch of work, right? Oops, sorry. All right, yeah, you've got the right idea. Keep going on it. And then put your characterizations in there as well.
Yeah.
All right, Nada. How about these are finished? And here's an example of the front going to the side, front going to the 3/4. They're a little out of order. I've seen this before. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's okay. Nada, have you ever done this before?
No, I haven't.
No, so this is a really wonderful first attempt. A couple of things to pay attention to, though, is that you've got the coat, the tail of the coat, right? And it's a little higher in the front view. So be careful. And then it's really tall, it's really long, it's really long in the side view. So this lineup line should be here, right? So this point should come down to about there. And then this point should come down to about here. And then everything will be lined up correctly. Do you understand? Do you see it?
Yeah.
Or you could just alter this one and make this one about here. Everything looks good. You need to do your characterizations, the positive and negative traits. That looks good. All right, and again, I think that you really do want to try to keep the poses in the right order of front, side, and then front, 3/4, and then side. I think that the reason for that is visually you can see the character turning. If you can see me in the monitor up there, you can see the character turning better. All right, your character designs are all very good. And you're starting to think about your characterizations, that's good. How old they are, that's a good idea. All right, and don't let those lineup lines touch. I mean, here you've got a light color, so you can kind of get away with it. But if the color of the lineup lines is even a little bit too dark, it'll interfere with it. Other than that, your designs are good. Designs are good. Try to get even the simple character to have a line of action in there. This side view here is the telltale that you didn't draw the line of action. The other ones are okay. All right, thank you, Nada. Randy. Front, side, 3/4. So Randy, try to get these into one layout. Randy, Mr. Randy?
Yeah.
Try to get them into one layout so that we can see that they're the right size. So that we see that the parts are consistent across a horizontal lineup line. The designs look good. Your presentation is just too big. And I can't make it smaller here. So in the PDF, use a smaller scale of layout. Use an 8.5 by 10 instead of 14 or whatever you're using.
It was
And-
8.5 by or 8 by 11. It just, I don't know why it keeps coming out that big.
Well, do a test for yourself and see if you can get these characters all in the same lineup so we know that they're correct. But do a test so that you can so that it's a better presentation. All right, and you need 3 other characters here, so you're not quite done.
Okay.
This is weird. It says page 1 of 3. Are there 2 other pages in here? Oh, I see. No. All right, yeah, do a test for yourself. Are you in Photoshop? Are you?
No, I just cropped it on Paint.
In Paint?
Microsoft Paint.
Microsoft Paint. See if you can scale down your the size of your artboard, your palette, the whole window, because it's hard for anyone to see the whole character. All
Okay.
right, and you got 3 other characters to do, plus the characterizations. Thank you, Randy. Right, Moses. Okay, so a couple of things just on this one. Let me take a quick look. All right, yeah, so with a character like this, Moses, Mr. Moses.
Hello?
Yes, I'm waiting
All
for
right.
my Zoom to behave. All right, so there is logic to using the lineup lines, right? I don't want you connecting the lines to the drawing, but in this condition, this head is way too small.
Mhm.
So this one's wrong. And you've got this character being too big. And so in this position, it gets bigger. And in this position, it gets smaller. If you've got the hand here, it's close, but then, whoa, you've made a big jump right there. If this is your main character, and I usually start in the 3/4 and then go to do the front and to the right to do the side, then what you would see here is that this line of action goes down and then comes back up again. So there would be a lineup line on the bottom, which you disregarded in this one. And then this would be fatter down here. And if you wanted to, just as a presentation, in the front view, you can even show the little curl of the tail coming out just in the front view. But remember, her left hand is right here. So the lineup line would be right there. Did you do the 3/4 drawing first?
I honestly can't remember which one I did first. I think it was a 3/4 one though.
Yeah, usually it's easier to see things in the 3/4. So then you kind of made things a little wanky. You know, you see what you did here?
Mhm.
You know, this character is quite a bit taller. And then this one is even, it's shorter because you kind of squished it. I think the design is okay. It's working. Your lines are a little messy. But use those lineup lines like we had talked about. Use them for your advantage. Okay, this is good. Okay. No, there's nothing like a mouse with a backpack, right? Okay. And again, with the lineup lines, you're missing them. So this character on the right, he gets a little too big. This one's more accurate, simple, it's more accurate. All right. And then remember, for all of you, I want you to start thinking about the really simple characterizations that are in there. All right, did anybody upload as we were going through the list?
I did again. I'm
May?
so sorry.
Yeah, I
You're
also
so
did as well.
evil. How am I supposed to keep my paperwork straight?
The file was too big.
But it took it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so these are good. They're out of order.
Yeah, I
I
realized.
think that you would, I mean, in the really out of order, if you started with the
Yeah.
front view on the left and then the 3/4 in the middle, then this would be facing the other way. And just as a production value, you want to keep it just consistent so that everyone knows that, you know, this thing right here is the tail, right? And that you're not presenting the tail in the down position in the 3/4 just because, well, you probably could, right? You see it?
Mhm.
I'm gonna figure this stupid thing out one day and then I'll be done with the class. It'll be over already. Okay. So what I'm saying here is that if you took this drawing right here and put it in the middle, that you would see this tail, just a little bit of it in this view.
That's true.
See it?
Yeah.
And then it's fine to have different hand positions in different views. That's fine. But this should really be facing that way. All right, and again, I think that you want to just be as accurate as you can by including those lineup lines, at least like the major parts. At least like the major parts so that you know you're not getting too wanky on everybody.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, this one looks good. You got them in the wrong order again.
Yeah, they're all messed up.
Well, I think, are you in Photoshop with it yet?
I am, yes.
So you can just copy and move them around.
Okay.
All right, you've got the right idea. Make sure that when you get them into Photoshop on another layer, you put those little lineup lines so that you can make sure that everything is nice and tight and accurate.
All right.
All right, the drawings look okay. Are there rough blue line drawings underneath it anywhere?
There was, but I did delete them.
Well, I think that in this presentation, this kind of presentation, were they done in pencil or were they done in Photoshop?
They're entirely digital. Yeah.
I think that you could have kept them. It's like one of those things where your math teacher likes to see your work, you know?
Okay.
All right, so you got the right idea. Let me make sure I got my mark in there correctly. Okay, yes, I do. All right, did anybody else upload?
I did, Billy.
That was Rachel?
Yeah.
I knew, because I know the sound of your voice. I saw your name light up over here. Okay, Rachel, let me make sure it goes here. So this is a really good example of, again, trying not to separate the drawings. Right? You want them lined up. You see as many pages as you can get so that I can see, so that you can see that they're turning correctly. And I think they are, but then all of a sudden you've got lineup lines to a close-up. And you don't want to do that. You want to remove these lineup lines.
Okay.
All right, your characterizations are starting. We're right. I think that you want to keep the presentation so that it looks like it's turning. And one thing that you may want to consider here is for this character, it can go a couple of different ways. The shoulders here can be really wide, and then in the 3/4 view, they start to narrow. And then in the side view, they can, it's up to you, they can be really, really narrow. And this thing here, like if you were looking at it in the top view, it might be a complete circle. But it also might make more sense if you just keep it kind of more of a straight line, so that in this 3/4 view, they're closer together. And then in the side view, they're really close together. Because
Okay.
in this presentation, his little feet are fire, right?
Yeah.
And he's on a circle of fire. Now, is that kind of what you had intended?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was going for.
So I think in that case, then don't make these just lines, make them fire
Okay.
and have parts breaking away. Go ahead and make it look like fire. Little bits, and then that part will be correct. Now remember, you don't have access to my effects board. I'm just speaking to myself, but you can just Google, what fire drawings look like. All right, you got the characterizations happening. The silhouette in there is always nice. Lineup lines, okay. Not quite the side view, but that's okay.
Yeah, I was looking at them again and I was realizing just how much I don't like drawing in the side view, I think.
It's hard. It's a pain, especially if you haven't done it before. But I think you've got most of it. I think that in this position, this is an okay place to put the hand. It seems natural. You don't always have to put it up on the hip. But yeah, that looks okay. All right, so be careful of your forward lean here. Use that line of action to make sure that your character is balanced correctly. Because he's like right on the tip of his toes. He'll fall over.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. All right, did anybody else?
I think you didn't get mine.
Okay, and that was Ria.
Yes.
Did I skip you because I hate you? No, where is it? Hey,
Where am I?
you got deleted from the class. Let me refresh this.
Yeah. Should be in there.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great. So you're handling your lineup lines correctly. They're soft, and so they're correct, right?
Yep.
But I think that some of them don't match anything. Oh, well, this one looks like the crease. That's okay. All right, so yeah, those okay. These are great. If you're going to use anything, F instead of front, everyone knows it's the front view. F, 3/4 right. So if you're going to put anything here, just put 3/4 R. Okay, and then S for side. Hold on 1 second. Okay, these are great. And again, if everyone's observing this, that she's using very light lineup lines, which is fine. They can be underneath the character. They can run right through it. There are different colors, so they're not interrupting. But this one doesn't match anything. This one should be like at the top of the head, and maybe another one for the ears, Ria. And because of that, your cat gets smaller in the 3/4 view and stays smaller in the side view. And you're still working on this guy?
Yep.
Okay, you got the right idea. Thank you, Ria. All right, did anybody else just upload? Everyone else? Okay, so the first thing that I would like to do right this moment is just do a little quick review of what we talked about last week. Keeping your characters front, 3/4, side. Using the idea that the lineup lines do not touch the characters. They are only there to make sure everything's lined up correctly. It's okay to use heads tall with either a partial drawing of the head or a copy and paste of the entire head face that would not include the hat. It makes sense because then you always know, oh, I have a character is 8 heads tall. My character is 14 heads tall. Then you know what you're doing. In the front view, this line of action is straight up and down. In the side view, in the 3/4 view, it's a gentle S shape. And in the side view is where it's most pronounced. So just, again, we're just reviewing. In this example here, what I was saying was straights versus curves, straights versus curves. And what I'd like to do is just jump away from this for just a moment and go to this. So what we've got here, and I'm not, I am recording this at this moment, but that's okay. This is just static images. So I think we talked a little bit about this last week. In this example here, it's really good where they're showing you the red and curved, and the blue and curved, and the red is a little bit more straight. And I think we talked about this particular drawing last week. Remembering that straights versus curves is a real thing, but that the straight, quote unquote, straight doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line. It could just be straighter. And so there's examples that are following through here. There's all kinds of good stuff. This example here, he was saying that straights and curves, so they don't have to be straights against curves, although I think that when you're looking at body parts, it really makes sense to counteract one side with straight and the other side curved. But like I said, when we were looking at Chris Sanders' stuff last week, he's just all outside curves, and it's a matter of style at one point. All right, so just reviewing, we talked about the secret of Kells. He uses extremely straight lines against very broad curves, and they're beautiful. It's a very stylistic thing that he does. All right, and then I brought up this one. The example that I brought here, character design, I just searched character design, straight versus curves, and then I added UPA. Now, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but UPA means United Production Artists of America. And this is heavily influenced by Norm Maclaren and the National Film Board of Canada in the 1950s onward. Mary Blair at Disney in 1935 onward. But when we add the UPA thing, we get a little bit of a different take here. We can see that there's characters that have a hint of a straight line and then lots of outside curves. You can see it in, what was the one I was just looking at? In stuff like this, where eyes, mouth, nose are all curved, and then lots of the other parts of the body are straight. So as you are all getting to that point where you're tying down your drawings and figuring out exactly what they look like, don't forget to go and look and see what happens to your designs if you start thinking about straights versus curves. It's a very important thing in character design. Don't dismiss it. It's too strong of an element in character design to just simply dismiss it. All right, so what I wanted to do, let me jump back over here. Let's just finish reviewing, because what we're going to do today is we're going to start doing poses. But in order to have the poses for our character, we need the story, and we need to know who the character is. You know, he's a chef. He loves movies. He's afraid of spiders. He hates gold. I don't know. You know, whatever you pick for his primary traits. Now I've only got 2 here for each. I could do 3. He likes to bike. He bikes everywhere. He lies all the time. All the time. So one of the things that just kind of dawned on my mind here, and I think that I'll bring it to the table, is that, you know, I think that it's good starting with 3 positive traits and thinking about 3 negative traits, faults, fears, failures, regrets, weaknesses, that kind of thing. But something just kind of reminded me this week. I don't know if it was technically I think it's a big thing when we go back to here and say, in red now, who does the voice for your character? I think that it is half of the characterization. You know, it is half of the impact on the screen for who that character is. And all this stuff comes into it. The likes and dislikes, the positive and negative traits, they all read into the voice acting. My daughter's boyfriend graduated with a degree in speech pathology or speech therapy, and he wanted to go back and get his master's in it, but he also wanted to be an actor. And I told him, you should be doing voices for cartoons. That's a really wonderful place to start out. So, you know, who would do the voice for my character? Who would do the voice for your character? Again, I don't think you should dismiss it. It's a big thing. All right, so let's go back up here for just a second. So I'm gonna use a different color blue here. We're gonna go to purple. As soon as Toon Boom wakes up and it's okay, Toon Boom is allowed to do this for me right now because I have it linked to an external hard drive. All right, so remember, what we're doing right now is the characters. And the characters are based on this story element. So last week, we talked about a couple of things. In a number of weeks ago, we talked about a couple of things. You want this story to be short. You want the beginning, the middle, and end of the story. Hold on a second. Where did I write? The beginning and the middle and the end of the story to be about a minute or 2 minutes. And so just imagine what your story is like. What are your characters doing? And remember that what you're also doing is you're animating the verb. So in this story, I don't want just talking back and forth. Talking is good. The voice is excellent. We want to talk about that voice all day, all night. But when it comes to the actual story, we want action. We want action in the story so that we can get the poses correctly. All right. So coming back over here and coming in a little bit, remember that what we've got now is we've got a really good start on our characters. We've got a good character on our design. We've got the turns going. Did anybody feel any of the feedback loop? Did anybody get to these character turns yet, or thinking about this profile? May did. And so you can feel that that feedback loop is a very natural thing. So what we need is we need this story, and I recommended last week a couple of things. One is like what I just did over here on the right, beginning, middle, end, a short story, a joke, something that has action in it. Or what you can do is go online, YouTube, and look through those Bird Box Studio from London, those little short films that I was introducing you to. You know, those are great. Some of them have lots of really good action in it. All right, so now what we need to do, oh, remember too, we talked about the names and nicknames. This is me reminding you that giving the character an animal attribute is always a really great thing, you know. If you have a female character and you give that female character the attribute of a dog, that's going to be a negative connotation. If you give a male character the attribute of a dog, that could be a good thing. He's got dogged determination, you know, and this is just coming straight out of our culture and our society. That's really all it is. And you can pick anything here, you know. You can pick your spirit animal. There's all kinds of fun things that happen right in this area, in this arena of designing your characters. Once again, I don't think that you should technically dismiss it. Just kind of think about it. All right, so, but now what we need to do is we not think about these idea of doing storyboards. And there's a couple of things that we need to talk about when we're doing storyboards. First is we want them to be thumbnails and small and fast first. The drawings of these thumbnails can be random. They are not in order. Oh, my pen is not working correctly. And that's what I want to focus on right now, is the idea of drawing your character into poses, but maybe not based on these storyboards yet. So let's go to frame number 2. So let's say that I have my character and I'm just going to go through this. I'm going to say, well, what does a running pose look like? And so the first thing that you need to do for next week is start to think about your character in these action poses. So as many as you can get. The idea would be is that these are 4-inch poses and that they're just drawn with the head, the line of action, they're in character, they're just roughs. They are just getting your character on the page so that you can feel what that character might look like. Now, this is just a typical pose for a run cycle, right? And you can see this kind of pose for a run cycle. And again, these are just like gestures, right? So now we're taking a step back in our character development, saying, well, these gestures are based on the characterization. So if this is a regular run, maybe the character runs a little differently. You know, maybe he runs like this with his arms straight out. You know what I mean? And so explore. The idea here is to explore what the actions of your characters are going to be like. You can even get it to the point where, you know, now I'm in the front view and the character's got like this like harumph, right? He's like both hands on the hips and he's really mad about something. You can even put the eyebrows in there, you know, harumph in a sad face, right? what are you thinking, right? And so what this is right here is pantomime. All right, so continuing, you know, what do they look like if they're sad? What does it look like if they're walking sad? What does it look like if they've realized that something is falling on them and they jump up in the air? Right? How many different kinds of poses can you get? So let's take a look at poses. You know, you've got a lot of things: sitting, standing, running. There's a lot of things, shooting arrows, right? So get that pose accurate, right? I don't think anybody had a character that was shooting arrows, that had a bow and arrow. But if you did, what does that pose look like? Now, a natural thing is going to happen, just like we talked about up here, that as you're as you're doing these poses right here, you might find that something is going to jog your idea of who that character is, what their profile is like, and it could even jog your story. Remember that we are early enough that that is completely allowable. So, you know, you just keep going. I like this like sitting pose right here. So, you know, just mimic it. You can get that character just kind of one leg up and the other leg just kind of hanging down there. What are his arms doing? And his knee, and this one's on his lap. Study that pose. You know, if you like this, it's kind of a nice little gesture right there. Pick out some other pose. Here, this character is holding something. I don't know what they're doing. So pick it, you know, get that line of action. They're a little off balance backwards. It's in the side view. They've got their arm just kind of hanging out there. They're handing something to somebody. So your next thing for next week is action poses. Everybody okay? And these are gestures. They're done with roughs. Roughs are a good thing. You're exploring, you are animating the verbs. All right. All right, so that's the first component of this, is that you have to start studying putting these characters in action. Then, everyone, do I have any questions from class, anybody? All right, so then what you are going to need is your short script. So let's just use one, because I already talked about the boy who drew cats. But let me show you the best way to do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a short story that I use for my life drawing and gesture classes sometimes. And so I'm going to draw this off the stage over here. And this is all you need. Remember, you need the verbs, right? And maybe just a little bit more, but mostly the verbs. You need the action, right? All right, so over here, I'm going to say Bob is cooking. A raccoon comes in the cat door. Okay? Bob freaks out. Everyone following? Bob grabs a boom. Chases the raccoon. Chases him around the kitchen. Now this can have a Tom and Jerry kind of feel to it. This can have a Disney feel, a Warner Brothers feel, depending on how you draw these action. It can have a very Tex Avery kind of feel to it. So if we jump over here and just do change this to character design Tex Avery, you're going to get a completely different set of feel of squash and stretch. If I just put in Tex Avery squash and stretch. It's not being really clear. Let me do Tex Avery extreme poses. You know, he was the master of the exaggerated reaction, the exaggerated take. You know, here this character is actually circling. They have 5 faces, 5 heads right there. You know, eyes popping out of the head. How far can your character stretch? It's a cartoon. You're allowed to stretch and squash your character as much as you would possibly like. You know, here's Chuck Jones drawing his version of squash and stretch. You know, Tex Avery was the master. Yeah, I'm not getting a good read on this. They must be coded differently. All right, so, you know, you could put like a couple of exploration things here, right? On top of the counter, in the living room, you know, all the chase, the whole thing is chases around the counter, chases around the living room, into the bathroom. You know, there's lots of dangerous things that could happen in the bathroom, back into the kitchen, right? And then the raccoon grabs the cake and runs out the cat door. All right, everyone okay with this idea? So that is just getting your script down. You know, what is happening? You want to animate the verbs. It's just a big chase sequence here, and it's going to be fun to draw. All right. So then what you do is let me go back to page 1 here, is that we were talking about drawing small, fast gestures. We were talking about these poses being like 30 seconds tops. They don't have to be in any particular order to start with. We were talking about action, you're talking about animating the verbs, poses, action. You can kind of hear the sound effects and the voice that might be happening right there. This is just a reminder for all of you that now you can start thinking about your size comparison. And you can do this in Photoshop, or you can do just a very simple drawing that shows the gestures of the characters as they're lined up. Who's the tallest? Who's the shortest? All right, so when we come back to here, the idea is to now start thinking about these, and they don't have to be in the right order. You could say, you know, here's Bob chasing the raccoon. And he's got this hand this way and this hand this way. And he's got the broom like up here. And he's running that way. And he's got his little chef's hat on, right? And so the raccoon is like scrambling. He's got his little feet. He's got his little tail. And I did that backwards. I should have drawn the head first. But the reason that I did that is because I wanted the raccoon to be looking this way. So I'll draw his little bandit. So he's running like that. And if you need to, if this is just a really quick pose, you could re-study how that raccoon looks through a head line of action, get his body, get his tail, get the feet going backwards, get these arms going forwards, get his little snout. You know, you could study this one just a little more strongly. Again, we're looking at action poses. So, and so the other thing is that, or the other pose that might be funny is how does the raccoon is running, right? In this part of the script, he's running back into the kitchen, he's running, and he grabs the cake without stopping. You know, how does that look? And so if you have like a quick little sketch of just the kitchen counter, and you've got the cake on top of it, and you got to kind of think about scale. How big is the raccoon? All right, so here comes the raccoon, the head, the line of action. And I'm kind of inventing this raccoon as I'm drawing him, which is fine. And so this is like the shot where he sees the cake. And now he's going to come up and he's going to stand and he's going to become bipedal. So he's going to run in and he's going to kind of, what do we got here? And he knows that Bob is still chasing him. So now my raccoon has become bipedal. So now he's like, you know, act it out. At this point, what you need to do is act it out. You know, get out of your chair. Like, what do we have here? You know, he's gonna put his hands up on his hips. Well, you know, he's gonna tilt his head left and right. What do we have here? You know, and then you could do like an EC, you could do a close up on his face. You know, he's like, just to study that little expression of like, what? You know, and a little smile. So here he was a raccoon, and he was running like a four-legged animal, and now here he is bipedal. And then you can study this again. It's like, you know, draw maybe a little more accurately to the proportions that you started with. His legs are looking a little long right there. Well, what do we have here? And you can study this by just saying, I'm going to copy this and paste it and move it over a little bit. And then you either erase it, you can do that. You know, like the head, and go back to your pencil, go back to your brush, and say, you know, what does it look like if he turns his head this way? He's going to get a better look at it. You know, so he's still got his nose that way, but he's like looking out the side of his eyes now. It's like, what am I looking at here? You know, here his eyes are really big, eyebrows are like way up here. He's smiling. And then here he's like, what do I look at? So you go a little arrow, put the arrow like that. Then you can paste again, come over here. and study what it looks like when he drives his head the other way. Again, just quick gestures. Eyebrows up off the top of the head, right? Little lines that delineate that he's a raccoon. You know, and at this point you could say, he's going to look at the camera, he's going to break the fourth wall. And in breaking the fourth wall, he's going to go, and now the eyebrows can be like way up here, and the smile can be like a little weary smile right there. And at this point, you could get his hands, rubbing his hands together, right? So you could try that, you know, get his hands, rubbing his hands together. He's still a little bit off balance. He's still, you know, Bob is lurking in the background there. You know, and at this point, you could kind of run with the script a little bit. You could say head, line of action, redo the pose. And here he's just going to kind of turn his head and look at Bob. He's still smiling a little bit right there. His tail is still in the same orientation. His hands are still there. And you're just kind of studying what his reaction is going to be like. So here, we didn't write this in our script. We didn't say that we didn't say he was going to stop. You know, our verb here does not say stop. So now we have to add stop, you know, and look and react. And then he's gonna notice that Bob is chasing him. And so he's gonna really react. And so now he's gonna like, ah! So now he's like off the ground, like these are his legs, this is his body. Where do you want these parts to go? He's like jumped off the ground and he's kind of like, oh my God, because here comes Bob. And his arms are straight up in the air. And you can keep studying this pose, but what's Bob doing? And so we didn't talk about this over here either. This is how it goes back and forth. Yeah, he grabs the cake and runs out the door, but we didn't talk about any of this or the fact that Bob now has, it could be anything. It could be a jackhammer, it could be a bulldozer, it could be a vacuum cleaner, it could be anything, So he had a broom, so now Bob has a vacuum cleaner. And so, you get that pose in there of Bob now running. Let's give him like one of those old-timey vacuum cleaners that has the hose on it. One of these kind of guys, maybe little wheels. And does this match? Does his eyes popping out of his head match what this is? And you could say, well, that's kind of an odd thing to react about if you have one of those old-timey vacuum cleaners. It might be more fun if Bob, has a weapon. He's managed to get like this giant gun. So redo your pose, study it. So Bob is still running, still a gesture, but now he's got like this huge musket kind of thing. So that I think that works better with this reaction. And this reaction here, his eyes can be huge. His nose can be out here. His mouth can be like this. His ears can be huge. Play with the idea of squash and stretch. This is his head. His line of action is out here. He's like, ah, his arms are going this way. If you want to play with that idea of this whatever this reaction is right here, stops, looks, reacts, and then he does it. Bob has a vacuum cleaner, there's a reaction right here. And so what you're doing, oops, sorry, is that you're studying what, hey, why is it doing that? That's very strange. Oh, I'm selecting. I switch tools. So what he's doing is his head is just exploded, right? And so we could erase this, but we're just kind of studying what these gestures look like of just how exaggerated, how extreme, how far up off the face do lines like this still look like eyebrows? All right, does everyone understand what I'm getting at here? Because you are going back and forth. You are writing out the action verbs for your script, which again has a good amount of action in it. You know, it has a good amount of get the characters into the stage and off the stage. And there's lots of fun things to practice drawing with here. And again, we started in the middle here, right? We started with these action poses. We started thinking about how we're going to put our character in motion. And so once again, and it's always the same kind of thing. It's always very similar to whatever it is that you're doing, because now you're going to do like a pose for that raccoon freaking out. You know, so now it's like, okay, maybe his head was a little too big right there. And so in this, we're going to start with a bigger head. We're going to just draw it very lightly. We're going to have the line of action go this way because he's pushing himself away from Bob, who's over there. And his body is going to stretch out a little bit. This leg has come off the ground. And maybe this leg is still just kind of touching the ground. And this arm is pushing to the left. And maybe this one is just getting there. So you're just getting the really first part of the gesture. In reality, what happens is that your character is made out of clay. And if his eyes are going to be up here, and they're going to be really big, his nose, his little bandit, his ears, his mouth, that it's still the same volume as what he started with to begin with. It's just stretched out. So these lines can just be really, the volumes of these lines can be really quick studies. So here you're just drawing like his hands reaching away. You know, here his hands are reaching away. And then his tail is kind of still sticking out here a little bit. So, you know, this looks like a little bit more dynamic. There's a nice S shape to the curve here. And then keep going with it. Now get that line of action so it's even deeper. Maybe you don't have to have that much of a exaggeration on his face, but it's still there. It's like, now it's like eyes and mouth and nose and the little bandit. You know, his ears. Get those eyebrows way up here if you need them to. You know, this is the inside of his mouth, and just kind of let it roll into his body. You know, you're studying these two poses. And so there was a foot up in the air here where he's trying to run away. And this foot was pushing off the ground. You know, maybe it looks better if both hands are this way. You know, so you get the thumb and the fingers, and the thumb and the fingers over here. He's like, ah, right. And then the tail has a more natural place to kind of live out here. All right, does everyone understand what I'm going for here with studying these poses? All right, so there's a couple of reasons why I'm using this as an example. And the first example is because the principle of exaggeration is at play here. How far can you push your character and still make it look like your character? And so the idea of action verbs happening in here and something crazy happening here is good because it lets you play with the forms and the volumes and the line of action of your character like you may not have been able to think about before. So you're welcome to use this idea of two characters chasing each other around a kitchen because one is not supposed to be in the kitchen. You know, that is fine. I think that if you were going to use the boy who drew cat story, you would definitely want to focus on the thing that you didn't see in the Japanese fairy tale was the cats coming alive and killing the goblin rat. You know, that could be a really cool thing, although none of you have characters that are kind of set up for that. But you do need, like I said, you do need your story to be at or around a minute to 2 minutes at 24 FPS at 1440 frames. Remember, so this is just extra review, beginning, middle, end. That if the average shot length is, it went from 30 or 40 seconds in the 1920s to nowadays it's about 3.5. So if your story is a minute long, at 3.5 seconds, you're going to have about 12 shots. And each shot has 3 or 4 panels. Then you're going to need somewhere between 36 and 40 total panels for your storyboard. Right? Remember, everybody? Does everybody remember this part from last week? All right, and what did I think about here? What was going on here? Options, story, script, actions, what happens? This was just me reminding you that in Hollywood, a 1-page script equals about 1 minute. But this is a real script. So this is character enters from off screen, sees his mom sitting at the piano, turns and says something to his mom. His mom returns the question. He walks into the kitchen, opens the refrigerator, notices that the refrigerator is completely empty. Mom, why is the refrigerator completely empty? That kind of script where you have camera, directions, voice, that kind of script, 1 page equals a minute. For our example here, this might only be 1/4 of a page of a written script, but because you've got all this weird action where Bob is chasing the raccoon around the counter, into the living room, into the bathroom, back into the kitchen, this could take up your whole board. This could be, this is all of your 40 panels. So remember, that's what my target is we're looking to have a storyboard that's somewhere around 40 panels. All right, any questions, comments, complaints, conundrums, criticisms? All right, so this is all me just putting in purple upon review. Let's see if there's anything I missed. Okay, so the next phase of this is to settle. The next phase of this would be is to choose what your storyboard panels are going to look like. Actually, let me go get a drink of water. Pause for just a moment. I'll BRB. I'll be right back. Okay. So just let me just redo one little thing here. Remember that what I said right here is important. These are 2 to 4 inch gestures where you're studying these action poses. Remember that you're animating the verbs. That's what an animator does. She animates the verbs. All right. And you're studying it with just the gestures. They're rough, they're pantomime, and you would act it out. And so if you find one of these actions in your short script, get out of your chair and act it out. What does it look like if you're holding, an animator, an animation studio is always going to have a room with a bunch of mirrors in it. And so if you can do that, if you have a mirror, you can figure out just by looking in a mirror what your character's action looks like so that you can mimic it in your drawing. All right. So, and remember that I'm looking for you to study how far you can push a pose. Right. And this is pushing. The idea of taking the line of action from this shape right here into this shape is pushing. How far could you push it? Could you just like let it go all the way out? How far could you push that pose? It's about as much as you could push that pose. Pushing the pose. You push the pose by driving the line of action. It's always the first thing that you draw. All right, everyone okay? Okay. Remember, I can't see my chat. All right, then you're going to choose where the story starts. And what happens here is that on a sheet of paper, I do a couple of different things here. The first thing I do is I will have, and let me just do it this way. Sometimes what I'll have is a little cardboard template. And so what this is just let me do it this way. What this is just a piece of cardboard. And in the middle of the cardboard, it's cut out so that there's just a little opening right here. And this, it's just, it's like a template. And this is good because this is, let me do the math for you here. And so we are doing 16 by 9, which is 16 divided by 9. And that aspect ratio comes out to, hey, why is this not working? 16 divided by 9 equals 1.77778. So that's, if you were going to use anything with 16 by 9, this could be 16 by 9 millimeters. This could be 16 by 9 inches. That would be way too big. From our math right here, what we need to do is we need to make sure that any number we pick is going to match this ratio for our screen. So you could do this a number of different ways. The first is you could say 16 by 9 matches 8 by 4.5. That's still too big if it's inches. Or 4 by 2.25. And this is like final storyboard size. So you don't want to use that one for your thumbnails. So here you would have 2 by 1.125 inches. And this is kind of, it's a little small. So if you translate these numbers into 2 inches by 1 1/8, that still equals the 1.777 film ratio. And you can make a template that small if you really want to, just cut it out of cardboard. The other thing that you can do is you can use this number right here to figure out how big you want this. And if you look at your hands, if you could say, you know, I want my thumbnails to be like, let's say that they're 2.5 inches by this number right here. How do we get that? So we'll bring our calculator back up here and you say 2 times 1.77777 equals. I don't know why my calculator is not working. So this is not correct. So you want the smaller number. So you clear it. 2 divided by 1.77777 equals, and that's your number. So if it's 2 by 1.12, that's the little template size that you work with. And that's really close to 1 1/8. So, you know, we just happen to hit on 2 by 1 1/8. Sounds like a pretty good template. And this 4 by 2 1/4 is good for the final. Let's check our math on the 4 by 2 1/4. 4 divided by 2.25 equals, there's your ratio. So this is the typical 16 by 9 film ratio that I would like you working with. There are other ratios out there. So let's just pick this one. It might be the easiest one to look at. So I don't think I've ever heard of, that they're saying that a piece of notebook paper is 7 by 9 ratio because it's 8.5 by 11. Television used to be 4 by 3. This is called Academy ratio. And that number, instead of 1.77, was 1.33 to 1. I don't know about this. Photographs can be any size that they want, but here's 16 by 9. Those are DVD, HD TV, most widescreen TVs. Even the YouTube, the Zoom channel windows that are over here are set up for 16 by 9 ratio. Many movies are 1.85 to 1. Some widescreen movies are 2.2 to 1, 2.35 to 1, extra wide, ultra panavision. You know, I don't want you distracting yourself. We're just going to use the 16 by 9 ratio right here. That's why we're using this. And all of these others are just comparisons of what those ratios look like, side by side or on top of each other. You know, this one's good. We are using 16 by 9. So this is a good way to test this. So let's say that you were going to use a little template like this for your thumbnails, and you use the same ratio, but it was just going to be bigger for your final. It would look something, it would just look like this. Oops, hold on. You'd have the piece of cardboard, and you would have a larger window inside it that was, again, this is 4 inches by 2 1/4. And measure that carefully. You know, this is the cardboard right here. And then that way, all you have to do is use your template in a number of different ways. The first is you could say, I'm just going to draw the template. I'm going to draw a rectangle with the template. So then I can draw my title card. You know, you always need a title card. And then you could take that template, and you could say, I'm going to copy it and paste it. I'm going to just move it over. And they don't have to be really close to each other. You can put it wherever you want. And you can copy and paste it and move it over. And it's best if these little windows here, these little these little thumbnail windows have a lot of room around each other, and there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, this is one way of doing it, is that you set up your storyboard panels so they're in a row, they're in a line. If this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or whatever screen, you have them set up just so that you can say, I'm gonna start drawing my house. I'm gonna start drawing some trees. I'm gonna draw the road. I'm gonna draw another tree. So you do an exterior version, and you can start drawing like that there was a zoom in that house, or maybe the camera was panning from this house over to another house, which is the one we're going to have our action taking place in. And what we're doing here is we're drawing through the shot. We're saying, you know what, I kind of like the idea of going to this house. The street is really wide. There's a mailbox. There's a mailbox over here. This is the driveway. And so the camera starts at position A and it pans to position B. And what you've got now is you've got storyboard panels that are drawn through the actual, storyboard drawings that are drawn through the panels. And you may not even end up using this. You might end up using a wider version here, and the camera starts out close and pulls out. It zooms out. The other way to do this is just to draw the shot. And you draw the house, and you know that you're using 1-point perspective. We already talked about that. We talked about the idea of drawing a big tree. We talked about the idea of drawing a road and the driveway for the house over here, going to the vanishing point. And there's another tree over here. You know, neighborhoods are always nice when they have trees. You could draw all the other houses on the street. You could draw the cars. You could draw bushes. This is the driveway. Maybe there's a sidewalk as well. And you can just draw the background of the exterior. So we're going backwards. We have the title card, and we knew that we wanted to start with an exterior. We wanted to start with the exterior for our establishing shot. And instead of drawing inside these boxes, now we're just drawing, we're very loosely just drawing our composition. There's some bushes by the house. Maybe there's a car in the driveway. Maybe there's a fence. All right, so this is a great study in rough as small thumbnails of what your establishing shot is going to look like. This is really kind of ideal right here, because you've already kind of, if we go backwards and we say, okay, we got our character, we start looking at this, we're in a neighborhood, we're in a village, stuff is happening, we've got our little story, we're studying our poses, our characters they have lots of action, they're going crazy on each other, there's lots of fun things to draw. And then we're going to study just how far we can push those poses, and they're random, and then we know we're going to start choosing. Our final film ratio is going to be 16:9, and our thumbnail sizes are here, and this is our final size right here. I'll put FN for final. That 4 by 2.25 is a really good size for our final storyboards. And then you can, and one of the reasons why I don't like this version, I had gone through a whole bunch of different storyboard templates for everybody, and making the point that there was lots of room in between the panels to draw with, and people were still filling in the little boxes. When they did their thumbnail, they were still coloring in the boxes. They were afraid to draw outside the box at all. And because of that, like there was all kinds of funky things that were happening. And then so I scrapped this idea of making handouts for everybody that had these thumbnail sizes. I even tried a version where the thumbnail boxes, the squares, the storyboard panels were very, very light gray. Like they were just very barely visible, and people were still drawing inside them. They were still coloring inside it. The idea is to draw through your storyboard panel. The idea is that they're just thumbnails. And if you're drawing the character running, it's like, well, you know, this is too small for me to draw in thumbnail, then draw it as big as you want. Then come out here and just say, this is my storyboard panel. I'm going to draw my character running and just draw right through it. Just draw right through the story panel. If we go back to this one, this is a really good example of using 1-point perspective, which we've already done in this class. And then so if this is a rough, then you can say, well, you know what? I've got an idea here. I'm going to start out with a storyboard panel that's 16 by 9. That's like this. And then, so that's position A. But then it's going to go, there's going to be a window right here. And so our storyboard panel then we can direct it so that this is position A and this is position B. And so we start out with the wide shot here and a wide or establishing shot. And we're going to zoom in, and the way to make a zoom is you start with the corners and you just push in, you put a little arrow. And you go from position A to position B. This is ideal. It's also ideal when you're setting up your establishing shot because you are drawing a little bigger. You know, it's at this point now where you can take all these and you can just delete them. And then you can start working on what this is right here. And you could say there was a window right here. This was the kitchen window, right? See the little curtains in there? Little shutter on the window. And then when you go to this shot, then just draw the window. Draw the side of the house, draw the kitchen window. Don't worry about the framing or anything, because in this shot, there might have been a bush right here, a couple of bushes, maybe some garbage cans, that kind of thing. So, you know, draw the house, draw the bushes, draw the garbage cans, that kind of deal. Here's the edge of the house. You know, maybe you're not worried about perspective right now too much. There's little shutters on the windows. Just draw it. You know, don't worry about any framing, just draw it. Maybe there's picture planes right here. And then inside the window, then you can see your character, your main character, my main character, Bob, has got a good silhouette. He's standing there in the kitchen cooking. That's all he's doing. And if he's going to be in silhouette, you can even just kind of bring him into silhouette like that. Then, and again, this is just a very small drawing. This is 2 or 3 inches. Then you can go back in there and say, what does my picture frame look like? You know, in this shot, it was here. It was covering up the window. That was position B. But now you can even go all the way to the window and go, and so this is position C. So now your zoom continues. All right. And then from this point, then you can go back into your open thumbnail mode and say, here's my character Bob. He's cooking, just gestures. He's got the stove in front of him. You set up your perspective, you know, whatever, just really light thumbnails. And then in this shot over here, he turns this way to see the raccoon come in the door. So he's still got the same line of action. He's still cooking. Everything is the same. It's just a rough and loose gesture, but he turns and he looks off the screen, and then you can cut to the shot, what he's looking at. So what we're looking at is that the raccoon was right here. The raccoon was entering through the cat door right there. And so this is, we haven't done any story panels yet. And so what we see now is Bob's point of view, and we see a cat door. You know, a lot of cat doors just kind of look like this. And then maybe there's some molding on the walls, right? Maybe there's some molding around the cat door itself. And then we could see, you know, could fit that raccoon inside it. So again, now we're doing our thumbnails just kind of in order. And now what you can do is you can take the little piece of cardboard that you had, and you can very lightly draw in the story panel right on top of it. There's your first one. There's your second one. And then this one might overlap. This one, the story panel might look like this, and that's fine. If you're just studying what the thumbnails look like, that's fine. And so I'm gonna pause here for just a second. I'm gonna come back to the classroom. All right, does anyone have any questions about where we're going with this? You're taking your character designs, and now you're putting them into some sort of story. Your story has to be, your final story for this class is going to be like 30 or 40 panels. And what we're going to do is we're just going to draw the actions for those, and we're going to start by doing thumbnails. And thumbnails are always done in gesture. They're always done with a line of action. I want fast, medium, and slow action so that you're studying how to put your characters into motion using the line of action. Okay, got it? And you're drawing small. My suggestions for using the little cardboard with the 16:9 ratio is good, but don't fall into the trap of just using that little template to make storyboard panels that looks something like this. So like this one right here, it's just wrong because there's nowhere to draw. You know, I've seen students using this one, and this gets you into the trap. Yeah, they're thumbnail size, but it gets you into the trap of coloring in the boxes, and that's not what you should be doing when you're doing thumbnails. When you're doing thumbnails, you should just be drawing. You should just be figuring out the actions and then doing the paneling later. So this one's wrong. Don't even download this. You're just studying it. So this one's a little better, but there's still not a lot of room to draw. This one, it's a little better because there's actually room on the right and left to draw. This one's horrible. Like this, if you did this, you would just be wrong. You know, it's best to just use a blank piece of paper with a very good idea of how big your storyboard panel sizes is, so you could just do the storyboard paneling later, especially at thumbnail, because you're doing it very fast. So don't use any of these. You know, the very common one is here from the flyinganimator.com. And when you've got your thumbnail set up and you know where each one of these panels is going at this small size, Then you can, then we're going to do another version of it with this is like the 4x2.5. And then you can use storyboard panels that are closer together. And I still want you to draw through the edges to some extent, because it's a better line. It's a better gestural line. All right, so to reiterate, for next week, you should have already had a good idea of what kind of story you were going for. And again, it might not include all of your characters, but you still need the 4 characters from last week. So some of you still need to get caught up. At this point, then, what you're doing is you should be thinking about doing a size comparison. And now you're going to be putting your story together. So we were just studying actions here, action verbs. What we could be, the first thing that you could do is to write out your script in verb action only. And remember, I want fast versus medium versus slow action. I want some fast actions. I don't want characters just talking to each other. It's bad animation. It can lead itself to just very limited animation, and that's not what you want. All right, so write out your actions just like this. It can be handwritten, that'd be fine. Just handwritten. Make sure that you're animating the verbs. Then practice pushing the pose. Get some of those extreme poses in there and practice pushing the pose. All right. And then this was an example of how to use the storyboard panels, but then I think this one is better. This one is just drawing the background, because one of the next steps is next week I'm going to hand out the idea of taking these very rough drawings and actually drawing out real backgrounds. That's part of the competencies for this class, is background drawings. And so this is good here because it gives you an exterior. And then this is good here because then it gives you a second exterior. And then this is good because now it gives you a couple of interior shots. So it gives you at least 3 or 4 backgrounds to work with. And that'll be a good bulk of work for you, is to figuring out what those backgrounds look like. But those backgrounds need to be based on your story. I don't want everybody doing the same exact background. That would be silly. So what we're going to be doing is drawing these thumbnails out so we can figure out where our environment is, what our establishing shots are like, and then we can start taking the thumbnails and figuring out what backgrounds you can design. And again, we're gonna finish out the class by spending at least 2 weeks on storyboards. All right, and a bunch of you still have these character designs to get caught up on as well. All right. Any questions, comments, complaints, conundrums, criticisms, anything that starts with a K or a hard C sound? Nothing? Nothing? Lauren, nobody? Are you all asleep?
No, you just explained it really well.
All right, well, that's better be perfect, Chloe.
I understand.
It better be perfect. Thumbnails. Just draw loosely and then put the story framing on it afterwards. All right. That's what I have for today. We will see you all next week. A whole bunch of you need to get caught up on your final character designs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the deadline for today, maybe into next week, so you can just put those character designs right on top of the ones that you've already submitted. And I won't grade them until next week or something. How's that? That sound okay? All right,
I like that idea.
I got 2 thumbs up. Okay, I will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everybody.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, next week.
Goodbye.
Bye. Mhm.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.